Alright guys, for today's video, we're going to jump right in. Many of you may be aware of a train derailment that happened in Ohio. It happened way on the eastern edge of the state of Ohio, on the border basically of Ohio and Pennsylvania, from what I understand. I've gotten a lot of questions about this train derailment. People asking if I'm okay, this, that, and the other thing. I can tell you I am very, very, very far away, a couple hundred miles away from where this occurred. It does not affect me. It doesn't affect my life. That's kind of the end of it as far as that goes. As far as statements or comments or anything I have about it, this is not my area of expertise. I'm not really one to say, and I don't want to get into that right now. I will say that there was an incident that happened related to that I am qualified to speak on, and this was the arrest of a, I don't know what publication he worked for, but he's a reporter. He was arrested at a news conference that Governor Mike DeWine was giving. It's my understanding that the governor was speaking and this man started to do his live broadcast while the governor was speaking. They're in a high school gymnasium, which is a place where sound carries. It's my understanding that he was approached by somebody. I think it was actually the general, one of the generals of the Ohio National Guard, said, "Hey, you're being loud. You need to stop your broadcast right now. The governor's speaking. You need to show some respect." And that's when Evan Lambert basically told the general, "Go F yourself. I'm going to do what I want to do." And that led to a confrontation. During that confrontation, he was arrested. The reason that I'm even talking about this today, it's because a good friend of the channel, Memoirs of a Modern Anarchist, left a comment on another trespassing video I had. He thought that it would be relevant to talk about this subject today. The bootlicker thing was just something funny he had to say. But he said, "Speaking of trespassing, could you do a video about the news reporter being arrested at DeWine's press conference? I'm curious how the trespassing law and the First Amendment freedom of the press could play into this situation." Before I get into kind of my own elaborated comments and how I go on tangents and all the other stuff, I saw this this post by the Ohio Attorney General's office, and I thought it was very concise. I agree with everything that he had to say. So I'm going to read that here and just kind of show you guys this from a legal perspective. This would be the stance because he is the top legal mind of the state of Ohio, right? The Attorney General says, "My office has reviewed the relevant video and documentary evidence and is dismissing the charges against Evan Lambert as unsupported by sufficient evidence. While journalists could conceivably be subject to criminal charges for trespassing in some situations, this incident is not one of them. The reporter was lawfully present at a press conference called by the governor of the state. His conduct was consistent with the purpose of the event and his role as a reporter." I want to go back to this and just elaborate or kind of respond directly to your question here. I'm curious how the trespassing law and the First Amendment freedom of the press come into play in this situation. My interpretation of the First Amendment is that the First Amendment applies equally to everybody. It's not necessarily a special privilege that somebody who is a member of the press gets. And the reason I want to say that is because there's a lot of these like clowns, these First Amendment auditor type clowns that since they carry their camera or their phone on a selfie stick, or they might carry a microphone or something with them, they say, "Look, I'm a citizen journalist. I have special rights." We as citizens all have the same rights to freedom of speech and freedom of expression and all of that other stuff. There are instances where something like a press conference might be limited to just because the size of the venue and the capabilities of security and all the other stuff. They might limit the number of citizens that are able to attend that press conference, and they'll say, only a credentialed press will be allowed in, or and sometimes it's only a certain number of press. They might say, "Okay, you're with this newspaper, you're the one that gets to come in. The rest of your coworkers have to stay outside. We're going to have one reporter from NBC, one from Fox, one from CBS, one from CNN," that kind of thing. So there could be a press conference with only 10 people. They're allowing the press in. They're just limiting the number of people that get in. So there's kind of that's where it does differentiate from a normal citizen and a member of the press. But at the end of the day, members of the press are still just regular citizens, and they're still subject to every other applicable law. We're going to watch the body camera footage here in a moment. I think I can go ahead and pull it up and get it ready. I would say that as a member of the press, it's just like the Attorney General said, it's conceivable that if you were at a press conference and you were causing a disturbance, you still would be subject to the law, which would be trespassing or disorderly conduct. Specifically in Ohio law, I don't have the revised code up right now, but there's also, I believe there's a code for disrupting a public meeting, meaning everybody else is enjoying their free speech. Your interpretation of free speech doesn't override theirs. So if you're disrupting their ability to peacefully assemble, you can be criminally charged with that as well. This particular case is one where I think basically everybody overreacted and they clowned themselves. I think that the general of the Ohio National Guard made himself look like a dumbass. I think Evan Lambert looked like a dumbass. The two sheriff's deputies that decided to take him down to the ground looked like dumbasses. The only people that actually looked like they were okay were the state troopers, who were just trying to keep the peace and keep everybody separated. I don't know. Let's go ahead and start this. We have about 90 seconds before the audio kicks on, so I can sit here and yammer on while you're watching this part of the video. But you can see the governor is talking. Everybody is huddled around him. They're recording the governor. And in a moment, some troopers and some other people are going to start coming out of this room over here to the right. And I think what they're doing is they're responding to the loud disturbance that's being caused by the reporter in the back of the room. You can even see some of the reporters over here. They're looking back in that direction. So from the perspective of the security and everybody that's on scene, this event is supposed to be a press conference for the mayor. This guy is out here causing a ruckus and making too much noise. So they go and they tell him, hey, you need to quiet it down. And he's like, no. And then this starts to go. In a moment, this guy in the camouflage, he's actually a general. I think I saw 2 stars on his collar. Let's see if we can get this out of the way. Yeah, a 2-star general with the Ohio National Guard. His name is Harris. In the news article I read, he was listed as a male black, which I thought was interesting. So here's the confrontation. The audio is going to pick up in just a moment. That's where he puts his hands on him. This is a thing that I find funny. I saw a lot of people saying that this general needs to be charged with assault for putting his hands on the reporter. Putting your hands on somebody is not an assault. Cause or attempt to cause physical harm to another person is an assault. Everybody needs to calm down. But also, in this situation, everyone needs to calm down. I
am allowed to be here.
Here's the thing. You are allowed to be here, but you have to be here following normal protocols and procedures, right? You don't, just because you're allowed to be there doesn't mean you get to be an asshole.
Did you not see that man put his hands on? Shut it down. You continued on. Go.
Now.
Go. Now. Or you can go to jail.
Because there's also the Supreme Court has ruled that, free speech must be allowed, but there's also appropriate time and place limitations that can be placed by the government. In this situation, I would argue that telling this reporter that if he's going to do his live report, he must do it outside, I think that would be an appropriate limit to somebody's right to free speech. In this particular situation, he's interrupting the governor's press conference.
Sir, you want to go to jail for criminal trespassing? Do you want to go to jail for criminal trespassing? Do you understand? You know how quickly our lawyers will get me out? I don't.
It's also annoying because just don't be an ass. You're not winning me over by acting in this way. If you want to stay there and report, you have to realize that, you do have to follow the rules that are in place. And doing this is like the I pay your salary type of argument and attitude. It's really annoying. On the flip side of that is these people that are surrounding him. I don't really like the way they're acting either. These people in green, I believe they are plainclothes sheriff's deputies with Columbiana County. From the news article that I read, that's what it sounded like. And the way they go hands-on here in a moment is a little bit absurd.
Yeah. Sorry, can we talk? I don't care. Let's talk outside. Go. Let's talk outside. Out the doors. Out the doors. Out the doors. By other media right here. I'm going to listen. I don't care. You're going to walk out the door. I'm going to listen. You're going to walk out the door. Touch mine out, sir. You're going to walk out the door, or you're going to jail. Do not touch me. Sir, can we talk outside, please? I am trying to listen. Talk outside, please. And he escalated with me. I am doing my job.
Here's the thing. You weren't trying to listen. You were trying to give a live report. You're lying right now about what you were doing. I can't support that kind of activity. In a minute, I'm going to, I have a serious problem with the way law enforcement handles this. But at the same time, I think that you can be objective about a situation, say every single person in this situation was being a dumbass. You don't have the right to be a dumbass. Nobody does. As a police officer, you don't. As a sheriff's deputy, you don't. As a general in the Ohio National Guard, you don't have the right to be a dumbass. As a reporter, you don't have the right to be a dumbass in public in this kind of setting.
This is covered by the First Amendment.
Excuse me, sir. I'm the building supervisor here. Please leave.
There you have it. You're going to stand outside. Or you're going to jail. Let's go. Let's go. Come on. Out.
There's also different things that we're trained to do as law enforcement officers. It's unfortunate that these two sheriff's deputies are small in stature, and the reporter that they are trying to handle is much larger than they are. But you do things the way you're trained to do. There's a reason that we are trained to do things a certain way, because they are safe and effective. What they're doing here is not. Grabbing someone's arm and pulling them through the door is not the way we're trained. You grab someone by the wrist, you put your other hand up behind their elbow tricep area. It's called the escort position. You give them a little pinch and you push. The body will naturally go in that direction. My friends and I have done this many times where you get somebody on both sides. You lift up a little bit, you give them a little push. They go. It doesn't look violent. Nobody is hurt. It encourages compliance. What they're doing right now is just going straight up for manhandling him. And then as he pulls back against them, they go to the straight up, okay, we have a maximum resistor. We're going to go to the ground. And they look really stupid doing it.
Arrest.
So this technique here, where you have your arm underneath somebody and you're holding on to his chest, this is not a trained technique that I'm aware of.
Oh my God! You guys, this is bad. Stop.
I am on the ground. What are you trying to do?
Stop resisting! Stop this! Oh my God! Stop! You want to get this? This is so bad.
Lay on your back.
Lay
flat, please.
I like how this trooper, I don't know what his rank is. I don't know the trooper rank. He's just standing there like, okay, this is what we're
doing. He's a national correspondent. You cannot do this.
I'm a reporter with News Nation. It's all being recorded right now.
I hope it is.
This is horrible.
Because you can't talk to people about doing their jobs.
Oh my God, I cannot believe this.
What's that?
This is horrible.
This is what it's like to be a black reporter in
Evan, I'm so...
That part right there is where he proves to me that he is an absolute douchebag. He's sitting here saying this is what it means to be a black reporter in the United States. There's a lot of things that he was doing that would cause law enforcement to pay attention to him. It's the fact that he's the only reporter that was not circled around the governor, listening to the governor's press conference. He was standing on the other side of the gymnasium doing a live report, making a lot of noise and drawing attention to himself. Then became very confrontational when law enforcement interacted with him. I don't think that has anything to do with his race, and I think bringing that up makes you a douchebag. I want to go back to the statement made by the Attorney General and remind everybody that I support the Attorney General's statement. My personal feelings about whether or not somebody is a douchebag does not change my opinion on whether or not you should be criminally charging people. We watched that video. It's my opinion that every single person in that video was being an idiot, except for the troopers. The troopers were being cool, calm, and professional, trying to keep everybody calm. The Columbiana County deputies were being douchebags. The Ohio National Guard general was being a douchebag. And reporter Evan Lambert was being a douchebag. Every single person involved in this situation had a hand in it escalating to the point where it escalated. At the end of the day, like the Attorney General says, while journalists could conceivably be subject to criminal trespassing in some situations, this incident is not one of them. He said the reporter was lawfully present at a press conference called by the governor of the state. His conduct was consistent with the purpose of the event and his role as a reporter. I would disagree slightly with the Attorney General. I don't think his conduct was consistent with what was expected of people at that press conference. I do think that there's nothing wrong with asking him to leave if you take issue with his actions. There's a couple of things that went into the reason these charges were dropped. One, there was no audio and no proof that he was being loud and that he was disrupting the meeting. That's just what we're being told. I assumed that what we were being told was truthful, but that might be the incorrect assumption, right? He might have actually not been disturbing anybody, and it was just the opinion of that general that he was being a little bit too loud. There's no proof that he was being too loud. Without that proof, there's nothing to support the criminal charges. Just because there isn't proof doesn't mean it didn't happen. I don't know. At the end of the day, you have to be extremely careful when you are approaching a member of the media or just a citizen who is filming. I don't like talking about it with the media, just somebody filming in general. And you have to be crystal clear that you have all of the elements of a crime and that you are standing on firm legal ground before you take action. This is not a situation where I think the parties involved did that. I think that's all I'm going to say about that. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon.